morning, Colton. Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here, guys. And this topic that I want to share with you is something that I'm really passionate about, really excited to share with you, and something that I think is absolutely critical in your business today. You need to be able to wear multiple hats in the economy we've been in, and especially now in an emerging economy where we're going to see some shifts possibly. And so by a show of hands, how many people, their first thing, their primary thing is real estate agent, first and foremost? Okay, how many are on the investing side, maybe wholesaling, flipping? Okay, so seems like we've got a little bit of a mix. Whatever is your first thing, I want to talk about how to implement it into your second thing by combining the two. And not just working with real estate investors, but actually becoming the investor yourself. And the way that I like to look at the business is, if you're putting in the time, energy, and effort, you're generating leads, you're talking to sellers, what you really need to be focusing on is how to maximize every single seller lead that you come in contact with. And that might mean retail list it, or it might mean investor buy it, flip it. And so I'm going to talk about that and actually share with you today what I call the list it or flip it system. It's a process that I follow. I teach my team how to follow, and I want to show you exactly how to do this. Fair enough? Okay. So first of all, I think it's really important that we understand very clearly the difference between retail and investor. And if you're into the investing side, it's going to resonate with you a whole lot more what an investment type of deal looks like. If you're primarily listing and selling real estate on the retail side, that's going to resonate with you. But I want to make sure you have a very clear distinction between the two, because it really matters what your strategy is going to be with each and every lead that you get. So first and foremost, retail is the ideal buyer is a homeowner. And so when you come in contact with a seller and you're looking at their property, who is the ideal buyer? If the ideal buyer is a homeowner, then that means the property is going to be in good condition, it's going to be well taken care of. And this is where the seller wants to sell, doesn't need to sell. So there's not a desperate thing going on. There's no desperation going on. And that seller wants retail value, and they're willing to do the work to get retail, meaning they're willing to go on market, they're willing to do showings, they're willing to do repairs, they're okay to do appraisals and inspections and all of the things that go into selling a property retail. And they'll wait, they'll be patient, because again, there's not desperation going on there. That's retail. On the investor side though, you're going to come in contact with properties where the ideal buyer for that property is not a retail buyer. It's an investor, or what we often call cash buyer. And this is a property that's in poor condition. And I'm going to talk about some different phases of what that actually means. We often call it distressed. I'm specifically talking about the condition of the property, not the seller's personal situation. We'll talk about that too. This is the opposite though. The seller needs to sell because there's some kind of thing going on. There's some kind of desperation going on. Not that they want to sell. They need more than they want to sell. All right. And in that case, in most cases, the seller would prefer or is adamant about not going on market. Has anybody met with a seller who says, I want to sell, but I do not want to go on market for whatever reasons? Okay, that's very common when it comes to distressed real estate. So this seller in that situation that wants an investor, or maybe they don't know they want an investor, the ideal buyer is an investor, that type of seller is willing to sell that property at a discount, sometimes a steep discount, for what? What are they willing to trade off? Speed and convenience. They would rather have speed and convenience to sell that property than price. Speed and convenience is more important than price. Anybody run into that? Okay, on the investor side, as a wholesaler and a flipper, that's the type of person that I'm constantly looking for. I don't ever try to create motivation in somebody. I want to find an already motivated seller that wants speed and convenience and will sacrifice price in the form of a big discount. Okay, that's what we look for as investors. So when it comes to this, let's first talk about what exactly do I mean when I say distressed. What does that mean, a distressed property? I like to break up distressed properties into 3 different categories, or what I call levels. A level 1 would be the house is dated, but it's clean and livable. Clean and livable, but it's dated. Now, a dated but clean and livable house could go either way, right? It could go retail, but could an investor also buy that dated house? Yeah, and even though it's functional, it's clean, they'll replace the cabinets, they'll update the floor, carpet, paint, all of that, and do a rehab and sell it for top value. So those ones can go either way. Those are a little bit tougher as an investor because it could also sell retail. Level 2 is when it's dated, but it's not clean. It's messy. And these are typically really messy, or it's a hoarder. Anybody run into these? Now, who's tried to sell retail a hoarder house? Anybody tried to do that before? How fun is that, right? Hey, we're gonna need to clean things up a little bit. Oh, you don't wanna clean it? Okay, well, we'll show it like this and hope we get a price, right? Those are really challenging, really difficult. In fact, many agents that just focus on agency, what do they do when they get this type of a seller? They say, no, thank you. Yeah, I don't want anything to do with trying to sell this house. This is gonna be really challenging. Okay, so those could sell retail, but more than likely the ideal buyer is who? An investor. An investor because they're gonna be fine to inherit that messy house. They're gonna be fine to do a trash out and get 14 dumpsters over there. They're fine with that, that's what they do. A level 3 and not livable, meaning it needs a roof, it needs windows, it needs siding, it needs everything. And because it's not really livable, these are your vacant properties, because it's not livable, it won't be able to get a mortgage, right? So then who do we eliminate as a potential buyer if it can't get a mortgage? Pretty much all retail. So then who's the ideal buyer for that situation? An investor, yeah. So all of these all 3 levels can go on market, right? Who's seen all 3 of those type of properties listed for sale with a real estate agent for sale on market? So the reason why I point this out is because I want you to be really clear at being able to distinguish which level it is. So when you kind of look at it with this breakdown, it kind of makes sense, right? Not too complicated to analyze a property and determine, okay, well, what level of distress are we talking about here as far as the condition of the property goes? Now let's talk about the seller's situation personally. There are 4 pillars of motivation that we look at with a seller that would put them in a place where they're in that desperate, need to sell, not want to sell. The first one is condition. We talked about that. That means the property itself is not at market value. There's some sort of level of poor condition going on. The second one that we look at is a hardship, and most times it's a financial hardship. Not always. It could be a tired landlord who's sick and tired of renting their property and they're just done with it and they want to sell. But in most cases, it's a financial hardship. And there are really 3 things that I've come to notice that happens when there's a financial hardship. They either need the cash from the property really desperately, so they know there's equity in this property and they want the cash out of that property to solve that financial hardship, or they want to stop the bleeding, I call it. What does stop the bleeding mean? What do you think that means? Owning that property is costing them money, insurance and a payment maybe, and repairs and upkeep, and that property is costing them money, taxes, so they want to stop the bleeding, and that's why they want to get rid of that property. Or a third possible scenario is they just don't have any money to do any necessary repairs that would allow them to sell it for market value. Okay, so these are 3 of the most typical hardships that come into play. The third one is time, meaning there's some urgency. And a great example of this would be like a pre-foreclosure. So there's a foreclosure auction coming up and they're running out of time. So if they want to sell their house when their kid graduates high school and their kid's 8 years old, then there's no urgency, so there's no motive. You're missing one of the pillars of motivation. And the fourth one is price. That one can be a deceiver, we often call price. Right, Cody? I learned this actually from Cody Hoffine in the back of the room. He taught me that the fourth pillar of price, meaning they're willing to take a low price, oftentimes they'll say, well, this is the number I want to get for the property. And the price they give you is what we call Zillow, right, or retail. And they lead out with that saying, hey, I've got these other three pillars, condition, hardship, time, but I want retail price for my house. And in that type of situation, what Cody taught me is he'll go on appointment. He'll be all over that. He doesn't care what number they throw out there or initially, right? Because more than likely, if the other three things are in place, then they're actually willing to come down on price to where they need to be to sell the property. So just because they say this is the number I'd like to get for the property, doesn't mean that's actually what they're willing to take for that property. Okay, so when we look at condition, we look at these different levels of motivation to where that property might be an investor type of deal. The third step in this process is then to determine, well, I have a real estate license. I'm actually a deal engineer, not an agent, not an investor. I'm an opportunist. I like to look at myself and say I'm not a wholesaler, I'm not an agent, I'm not a rehabber, I'm not a landlord, I'm an opportunist. How many of you here relate? How many of you here want to identify as an opportunist? You better identify as an opportunist, especially in a shifting market. Why? Why had you better be an opportunist in a shifting market? Because doors are going to close, and when doors close, what also happens? Doors open, and if you've got blinders on, and you're like, man, I just do retail listings, that's all I do, you're going to be missing out on a lot of opportunity all around you. So that's why, for me, as an active, holding an active real estate license, as a flipper and as a wholesaler, I'm always looking at the marketplace and saying, what are the opportunities right now? In fact, I firmly believe this, I know Colton believes this, that the early implementers make the most money. And why is that?
No competition.
Yeah, you're first of the game. Yeah, you see it, you capitalize on it, and then what happens after a while? All the competition comes in. Yeah, the most successful people I know, like Colton and like Cody Hoffine, the most successful people I know are very quick to adapt to market changes. Not only are they quick to adapt to market changes, they actually look forward to it. They anticipate it. Joe mentioned this too. I don't know if Joe's still in the room. What did he say? Do you guys remember what he said? Is he fearful of a shifting market? What did he say? He's freaking pumped about it. He's pumped because he knows doors are going to open. And he's going to be there to capitalize when those doors open. And so I like to look at things that way as well. I think what I'm sharing here is something that everybody in this room better become proficient at doing. So if it's not a motivated seller, they want retail, great. Use that real estate license, list that property, help them get the highest price they can get. If it is a motivated seller, then I want to share with you how to look at that now and help that seller with a cash offer solution. And there's a couple of different ways we can do this. But first, let's talk about the benefits. What does a cash offer or a cash buyer solve? And there are really four primary benefits that a cash buyer can solve for a seller. First of all, it's all cash. Now, all cash, oftentimes we think that means you got to have $100 bills in a suitcase under your mattress or whatever, right? It doesn't mean that. Everyone misunderstands what all cash means. All cash simply means there's no financing contingency. So me buying this property is not subject to going out and obtaining new financing. Now, what does that do for a seller?
Speeds it up.
It certainly gives peace of mind, because less contingencies mean what? The less chances of buyer falling out, right? More certainty in closing. So you have to help the seller understand. So when I say to a seller all cash, I don't assume they know what that means. What do? I educate them. I say, hey, here's what all cash means. This is what it means. It means this is not subject to me going out and getting a loan to buy your house. That means I've got funding behind me that can close on this property, right? It doesn't necessarily mean it's your cash or it's $100 bills, but you have the funding to be able to purchase that property. The second major benefit is as is. Now, when we're dealing with distressed real estate, how big of a deal is this?
Huge.
I'm not going to ask you to fix anything. I see the condition it's in, and I'm going to take this exactly how it is. You don't have to repair, no inspections, as is. Third one is fast closing, and this is a big deal, right? Remember urgency? So we tell sellers, you pick the closing date. We'll close whatever day you want to close. As long as title's clear, we'll close in 10 days, 2 weeks, 30 days, you tell me. What does that provide for a seller in a distressed situation? Lots of peace of mind, speed and convenience, remember. And the fourth one is optional. You can do this, which is no fees. You could offer to pay closing fees. You could offer to pay any commissions. We'll talk about that in a minute. So that's a fourth possible benefit, is that the buyer will pay the fees. Now, we'll need to build that into the numbers, obviously, because someone's got to pay those fees. But it's another benefit that you offer to a seller under a cash offer solution. By the way, I have scripts that I'll give you guys. They're my seller scripts I use to explain this, to walk a seller through how this works. Again, a seller needs to understand how a cash offer works, how that's a solution, how that's a benefit to them. Okay. Now, this is something brand new I created just for this presentation, and I call it the List It or Flip It script. And basically the way this works is, it's the first time I've actually formalized this, but we actually are going to give the seller two options. Now, we don't give the option if it's clear that it's retail, which is going to be most of your listings. You're going to just go retail. But if it fits that category where it's in some kind of distress and the seller's motivated, based on what I recently just talked about, you want to introduce the second option, which is a cash offer. So the way this works, and again, I'll give you these for free. If you go to agentofferscripts.com, you can download these scripts for free. The way it works is, you're going to lay out for the seller, hey, let me show you what it looks like if we go retail with your property. And then let me share with you a second option, which might be a better solution. Now, the key to this working well is you need to approach it with the seller from an unbiased perspective. What do I mean by that? You don't carry the way. Hey, I'm just here to help. I'm here to serve you. You tell me what you want to do. I can help you either way. You want to go retail? Great, let's go retail. In fact, if there's repairs you want to get done, I know contractors, I can help you do that. Whatever it is. Colton? Oh, 5 minutes? Okay. If you want to go option 2, which is consider a cash offer, here's what that looks like. Now, oftentimes what I found is when I'm dealing with a distressed seller that's motivated, and I lay out for them what retail looks like, and then I lay out them what a cash offer looks like, which route do they go? Oh, almost every time. Why? They see the comparison of showings, and we're going to have to make repairs to even get a buyer interested. They're going to need to get a mortgage. We're going to have appraisals. They're going to come back from that inspection and ask you to do things. This may take some time. That's all fine. If you want to go that route, let's do it. Or there's this other solution that might be right for you. You tell me what's best for you. And that's what that dialogue looks like. So again, you see I put in there in quotes, either way, whatever option you choose, I'm here to help you. Make sense? Okay. There's two ways that I want to show you how to structure those deals. When they decide that they want that cash offer, you could do a pocket listing. Now again, you got to make sure whatever state you're in with your real estate commission that you can do pocket listings. But if you're allowed, who's allowed to do pocket listings? Anybody have any issues? What is a pocket listing? Everybody familiar with what a pocket listing is? What's that?
Exclusive or not?
What is a pocket listing? That's right. It's you basically keep it off market. So you work out a transaction with the seller off market. Okay? So you could do that. So here's what you'll do. You'll take your deal to 1 to 3 cash buyers locally in your market. If you're here in Salt Lake City, you take it to Cody Hoffine. He takes down your deal. You build a relationship with Cody. He's going to work with you closely with your pocket listings on your cash transactions, and he'll step in and be the buyer. Okay? You're going to present those offers to the seller. Seller's going to choose the best one. And then you as the agent, what do you still earn? Commission. Yeah, in fact, now there's no buyer's agent, so what do you have? More room on the deal, right? You could offer the seller a discount and say, hey, I'll do 4% and I'll cover the whole thing, both sides. Or you could go right to the 6%. A lot of the agents I work with still charge the seller the full 6%. The seller's already decided that they're going to pay 6%, haven't they? If they go retail, they're going to pay 6%, 5 to 6%. Okay, that's one method. If you don't want to get involved, this is one method. I think every real estate agent today should be aligning themselves with the Cody Hoffines in their market and be doing pocket listings on your distressed properties. It's the best solution for the seller. It's going to net you more as a real estate investor. And what's going to happen to the brain damage of trying to sell a distressed property? Goes way down because you're taking it directly to cash buyers. Structure 2, for those of you that are really ambitious, is to become the investor. You become the cash buyer. Now, it doesn't mean that you got to tie up your money. It doesn't mean that you have to buy the property and take title. What can you do? You can wholesale that deal to an end cash buyer, right? So what would that look like? Now you become the buyer on contract. So you tell the seller, listen, I can actually take down this property. Me and my investors and partners can buy your property for all cash. Okay, we don't say I buy your house for all cash if you're not actually buying it for all cash, right? But me and or my investors or partners can buy your property. You get on the contract, you go now to those cash buyers in your market that you build a relationship with, and you assign that contract for how much? Whatever you built into the deal, 10,000, 15,000, 20,000. I think Cody told me his average wholesale fees are in the 30,000s. Is that right? 30, 50? Yeah. So you become the investor now. If you need the assignment contract, if you need the paperwork and how to do that, you can just go to wholesalercontracts.com, and I give those for free. They're my contracts I've spent 20 years building and modifying and perfecting. Okay, now one caveat to this I want to make sure I'm really clear about is proper disclosure. If you end up being the principal in the transaction, you better be crystal clear with that seller your role. Because no longer are you representing the seller as his agent or her agent, right? And you don't want to have any confusion about that. You don't want the real estate commission knocking on your door saying the seller thought you were the agent bringing them the highest and best price. As a principal in the contract, who are you looking out for now? You, not them. An agent looks out for who? Seller's best interest. You look out for who? Your best interest. So I actually have an investor disclosure that I have all my sellers sign since I'm licensed. I even have them sign it when I'm not acting as the principal. And it says, it clarifies what my role is. I'm either gonna be your agent and get you the highest price I can, or I'm an investor, which means I'm not representing you, which means you need your own representation if that's important to you. I am an investor now in this transaction. Everybody clear on that? Okay, don't list it or flip it and not make that really clear to the seller. We go over it in writing, we go over it verbally, and I want to make sure that I'm clear with my sellers that way. Okay, again, if you guys want to take a screenshot of that, these are some of those resources I mentioned. They're all free. You can download those and help you do any of the stuff that I just mentioned here. So guys, excited for you. Go out there and crush it in your market. Remember, you want to become a deal engineer, not a listing agent, not an investor, a deal engineer, which means you're going to find the best opportunity for all of the leads that you come in contact with. Make sense? Yep. Awesome. Thank you guys. Really appreciate you.
I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
Who's heard of wholesaling before? Has anyone never heard of it? Just wonder if there's never heard of it. Maybe just take a quick minute and share with them one of the movements we're seeing happening. And because I think most of you guys are retail real estate agents, most of you are, and look at it a different way. Instead of how we're always talking about how it'll affect wholesalers, how this situation will affect realtors. Make sense? With wholesalers getting money?
Yeah. So one of the reasons why I closed my brokerage, moved over to Real, working with Colton directly with his team, is because, and if you guys that follow me on YouTube or any of the things I do, I talk a lot about this. In fact, I'm one of the only people talking so much about this. But in the wholesaling space, and even in investing, we're seeing a lot of regulation and negativity come down just on investors in general. Like, we're the bad guys, the investors, right, in the marketplace. And so we're seeing regulation happening, and what the regulation is saying is it's saying if you're gonna go out there and transact real estate as an investor, especially a wholesaler, we want you to be licensed. Okay, now you guys that are building teams with Real, this is a big deal, because what does it mean, these hundreds and thousands of wholesalers out there in every single marketplace, eventually they're all going to have to become what? Licensed. It's coming. It's already happening in several states. It's trickling. I think in the next 3 to 5 years, you will not be able to do wholesaling without a real estate license. Right now, they're grossly underserved. There's nobody really meeting their needs from a broker's point of view. And that's where we're excited and Real's excited, because you can now offer a solution to wholesalers. Come be part of my team. We're wholesaler or investor friendly, and we want to help you succeed in your business and remove this animosity between, investor and agent, and kind of bridge that gap. But huge opportunity right now.
Awesome. Give him a hand, everybody.
Thank you.